Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Lots going on around the league. We've got a lot of updates since our last show to get into. I'm Trevor Lane, joined by Keith Smith. Make sure you guys do subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. In fact, right now, everybody, just do me a favor. Just do me a favor. Right now, look and see. You're watching on YouTube. I see you right now. Look and see if you're subscribed. If not, fix that. Hit that button. It's free. Free, not going to cost you anything. Hit that subscribe button.
In fact, I'll pay you in a hug if you come up and show me that you are subscribed to the Front Office Show. If you see me out and about at the grocery store or wherever, I'll give you a big hug. If you want one, I won't force one upon you, but should you want to be paid in a hug, I'll be happy to give you one.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. This channel giving out hugs, giving out NBA goodness. Look at that.
Podcast of the people here.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's get into it. We got a lot of news to get into. Let's get into it here. The Indiana Pacers reportedly willing to go into the tax from Myles Turner. Well, Keith, as we're recording this, the Pacers right now are up 2-1 on the Knicks. This is kind of the way I thought that with the Pacers postseason success that we've seen so far, and the fact that maybe they're on their way to the NBA Finals. If you're not going to pay up for that team, what are you going to pay up for? So, good to hear this, but maybe not unexpected given the success that we've seen with the Pacers so far.
Sure, yeah, and also not a guarantee that they will even need to. So here's where the Pacers are at. This is just, I think, kind of instructional more than anything. But they are right now, I project them to be about $36.6 million under the second apron. They're about $16.7 million under the tax, $24.7 million under the first apron. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to go all the way to the second apron. So take that out of the mix. 16.7, yeah, Turner's going to get more than that. I think we can all agree on that. He should be a minimum of a $20 million player or so.
The rumor is he wants 30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and if he wants
30, yeah, and if he gets it, great. Good thing for the Pacers is, well, who's giving it to you? Because it's not going to be Brooklyn. So, where are we going to go with this? They have a little bit of leverage from that standpoint, but they're not going to mess around too much because of exactly what you said. This is a very good team. Maybe, by the time we, connect again here, maybe in, on the verge of an NBA Finals or even in the Finals. So we're in a spot where, I think this is the smart thing. Here's the important thing to note, though. Right, what did I say? 16 million or so under the tax line. Mm-hmm. So you go into the tax line, great. Then where you come out of that on the backside is, all right, now we got to make another deal later to lessen it or even get out of the tax down the line. Okay, maybe that means, it'll be topping. We don't need as much as we thought, or whoever it is. We can always make another trade later to lessen the tax bill. So I think it's probably pretty good chance to see the Pacers start the season as a tax team, whether they finish it as one. We'll see, and a lot of that will probably depend on where they're at and how they're playing and all that good stuff.
Well, Keith, what we had been hearing previously, though, was that they preferred to stay even below the first apron. And there was some talk about them potentially moving off of, one or more of their wings. There was talk around the trade deadline of them maybe moving on from Obi Toppin or something like that. And it does seem like their success we've seen this postseason has increased their appetite for at least exceeding that first apron. I think most teams, if not everybody, that's below the second apron are going to treat the second apron as a de facto hard cap, whether or not they trigger it as one or not. They're not going to want to pass it because of the restrictions that come with doing so. But crossing the first apron was something that was at best a questionable thing, whether or not the Pacers will be willing to do that. This suggests that, they're not going to try to just jettison, an Andrew Nembhard or a Nesmith or anybody like that. Not that they necessarily would have, but even Obi Toppin, like they're going to be more willing to keep this roster together and deal with the repercussions of being a first apron team. Whereas prior to this run, maybe they wouldn't have been.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to treat it, right? We're not in a world where clearly the teams that are left outside of the Knicks and, well, I guess two of the four, the Pacers and Thunder, are not even tax teams. And then you have the Knicks, who are very clear just below the second apron, and you have the Timberwolves, who are a mile over it. So there's not you must be a tax team to contend, but there is a if you're close and you spend wisely, not you Phoenix Suns, obviously you don't count in this, but if you're anybody else, you're going to be in the mix, right? If you do it well, and I think that's where the Pacers have hit, and it's got to be at least heartening for their fans because they've operated for years and years and years like the tax was a de facto hard cap for them. They didn't even want to pay the tax, and now it's all right. If we have to do that to keep this team together, let's do it. But like I said, you can always figure it out down the line if you need to. I think I think they will go into the tax, but stay within range of a move or two. Will get us out of it if we need to be. The other good news is it's really kind of Myles Turner, and then there are other free agents. It's nobody of super note here.
Mm-hmm.
They have a draft pick this year, so you'll be able to backfill a roster spot. So we're not talking about a team that's going to be in the tax and then still have to fill out 5 roster spots or more.
Right.
Like you're talking about filling out a couple with minimum, so they'll be okay as long as the Turner contract doesn't get crazy. And I going much more than 25-30 for Myles Turner probably seems like the extreme high end.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they go much beyond that, but that seems like that's what he wants. And you know what? I mean, he likes being in Indiana. And although Shams Charania did note today that Indiana is becoming more of a destination for free agents, so maybe that's something to consider. But I don't think if Myles Turner wants to stick it out in Indiana, I think the Pacers are going to do what they need to do to make that happen.
I have some doubts that Indiana's all of a sudden becoming a major free agent destination, but
to be fair, he was speaking to Pat McAfee in that moment.
Sure.
So who was a big Pacers Indiana guy, obviously.
Live or something in front of the arena. So,
yeah,
I mean, maybe, right? Like Halliburton is there. He's there long term. Siakam's there long term. You've got a good youngish core. It's kind of the same as Oklahoma City, right? If you told me a couple of years ago, like they'll attract a guy like Hardenstein, not a major, huge, monster free agent signing, but a really good one and an important one for them. So yeah, I'm not gonna argue with it too much. I don't know. It's gonna also all of a sudden become LA or Miami, but yeah, maybe for at least the next few years, they're on the radar in a different way.
You mean LeBron's not going to say, "I'm taking my talents to Pawnee"?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Well done. Good segue.
There we go. All right. Speaking of LeBron James, look at that.
Shocker.
I'm a professional. LeBron James, according to Shams Charania, he is likely to pick up his player option for next season. And Keith, like the belief has been, and I talked about this already for Lakers Nation, but the belief has been that LeBron will wind up staying with the Lakers. The question is exactly what would he do to accomplish that? Would he just pick up the $52 million and change that he's got on a player option? Would he opt out and sign a new deal? Would he opt out and take less? That's the negative for Lakers fans in this, is that if he just picks up his option, then your pathway to getting a full mid-level exception is very, very narrow and extremely, it's unlikely to regardless, but your cleanest path to getting to the mid-level exception would be LeBron offering to take less, as he reportedly did last year. But if he picks up that option, that's most likely out the window unless something unexpected happens with the rest of the roster. But LeBron picking up his option, number one, it tells you that he's playing next year and he's not retiring. But I've also seen this idea floated around, Keith, would that be perhaps more confirmation that this is going to be it for LeBron, that one more season? Otherwise, wouldn't he just opt out and sign a new deal if he's just picking up a player option rather than doing a new contract?
Yeah, I want to start with the breaking news that you consider $627,000 and 153 cents to be and change. Now we know the big baller lifestyle you're living, big baller over here.
So. You know what it is? You know why I said that? It's because I'm getting old. And on my screen, I'm looking at you and I can't read what comes after. I know off the top of my head what the first two numbers are. The 52 million, I couldn't remember what the rest of it was, and it's too small for me to read. I need to put glasses on or something, I guess. So that's why I went to and change. It's age catching up to me.
I speaking of glasses, I need to go pick up new ones later today, and they're moving me into a new phase of glasses. So I'm not exactly thrilled with it. Getting old sucks, everybody. It's the most fun you'll have. All right, to be serious here, I wondered the same kind of thing. If he picks up the option, is it closer to then do we get some form of announcement of, hey, I'm planning for this to be my final season? Because I'm with you, because why not opt out? Could sign for the exact same number and then just tack on a year. And then you just kind of keep playing the game we've been playing for a few years now. But I get it. If he really is there, let's also be realistic. If he opts in and then decides, you know what, I do want to play in 26, 27, which kind of part of me is like, why wouldn't you? He just made a second team All NBA.
It was sixth in the MVP vote.
Yeah, guy's still playing at a ridiculously high level. If he still wants to play, like, okay, then like the Lakers are gonna be like, nope, sorry, take a minimum. Like, I think that's gonna be how it plays out. And if they do, guess what? There'll be 29 other teams that are like, hey, we can beat that, or at least 20 something other teams. So, I think it is interesting. I think the more relevant, direct concern is what you said with can't really then count on any kind of, hey, all right, I'll take 40 million and knock 52.5 off my number. And maybe that frees up the non-taxpayer MLE and we'll have money to spend. And then maybe Finney Smith's like, you know what, I'll knock my number down to 12, but I'm going to add a couple years on or whatever it may be. You know, that's the challenge. I think it's more likely what you see is LeBron opts in and then Finney Smith is maybe where you're not going to get to the non-tax, but maybe he knocks enough off his number that puts them in a position where we can use the taxpayer MLE and feel comfortable. We've got the wiggle room under the second apron hard cap that would trigger. That's not a huge issue for us, and we can kind of get to where we need to be, because I think that would make a lot of sense for the Lakers and for Finney Smith too. If it's I opt out, but I'm locking in 36 million over 3 years or something. Like, okay, yeah, that works. You know, let's go. That gives us flexibility. And honestly, that 5 million or so in the non-taxpayer MLE, that could get you a pretty good center. Like, because guys are going to get squeezed very quickly in free agency. Eric Pincus wrote about this the other day, about how the MLE kind of is like disappearing. Like, it didn't really get used a lot last year. Yeah, well, and a lot of teams now you can use it as a trade exception, or like, well, let's see what comes up in season if we want to do that instead of signing somebody just to use it. So yeah, I think this year in particular, that taxpayer MLE is going to have a little bit more spending power than what we would normally think of.
Yeah, 100%. I've talked about that a bit on Lakers Nation, that if they do have that 5.6 million, that taxpayer MLE, it's not necessarily so far behind what everybody else is going to have. There will be a few teams, I think, that'll use their full MLEs, but you can't just look and say, oh, all these teams have the full MLE. There's no way teams with the taxpayer are getting everybody. No, because a lot of those teams with the full MLE, they're not going to use it. They're going to bring it into the season to hold on to it as a trade exception. So
yeah, you might have a couple teams that are like, you get to July 4th or 5th and you're a few days into free agency and they're like, wait a minute, this guy's still around? All right, let's at least have a conversation with him. You know, even if it's, hey, well, you take 12 million of the MLE versus the full 15 or whatever it may be, or 14, I guess. You know, let's have that conversation. But yeah, I think we're in a spot where we see, you know, teams again, probably pretty conservative with their usage of that, or more likely to maybe use it as a trade exception than as a signing exception.
All right, let's with LeBron likely picking up his option. By the way, I do have a video coming out in a few days that I pre-recorded because I'm going to be out of town for a bit on Lakers Nation, breaking down exactly what would be available if he did take less and how much less and all of that. So that's going to be coming out if anybody's wondering. But it does seem likely that he's going to pick up that option and then play out next season. We'll see. It may wind up being his last, but I'm sure he'll let us know.
When the time is appropriate. Not going to just up and retire at the end of the year.
Not going to do the Tim Duncan?
No, I think we're getting the full farewell
the full retirement tour.
Whatever. Who cares? He's earned it. Yeah. Like, I don't, you know, if anybody gets mad about that, you must have a pretty good life if that's the thing that can make you angry, because this guy certainly earned it.
All right. Speaking of star level players, the Bucks are going to try to convince Giannis to stay. And I love this, Keith. It's not Stay because we're so good. Stay because we've got such a bright future. Stay because we've got all these assets to surround you with whoever you want. It's stay because our conference sucks. That's the message from the Milwaukee Bucks to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Look at the state of the Eastern Conference. Why would you ever want to leave? Now, I guess the counter would be, why doesn't Giannis just say, okay, trade me to another East team? But
yeah, right.
but it's also a fair point. Like, it is, if Giannis really wants to win a championship, it's a much cleaner path to do so in the East, particularly with Jason Tatum's unfortunate injury and what that's going to mean for Boston. It's a much cleaner path to getting to the finals in the East than it is in the West, where you're going to have 13 of the 15 teams are going to be expecting to make the playoffs next year, or at least go into the season with that being their goal. That's not going to be the case in the Eastern Conference. And so that's going to be part of the pitch from the Bucks to Giannis, saying, hey, stick around because it's not so pretty over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this with the Cavs. This is why you don't rush into, well, we got to break this team up. They didn't get it done for a second year in a row. You have real reasons that maybe Indiana beats them anyway. We don't know for sure, but at least you can say, hey, the injuries didn't help along the way. And you're looking around like, and we just rolled through this conference in the regular season. Why can't we do that again, have even better injury luck? Why can't we be there? It's kind of the same thought with the Bucks, but like a rung or two down, where it is, are we Giannis back? We still have some pretty good players on this team. Retool around them a little bit, and we can figure this out. Even with Damian Lillard likely out for a large chunk of the season, if not longer. I've heard the same thing on Lillard that we're hearing about Jason Tatum too. Is these Achilles injuries maybe aren't going to be a year anymore. Like, they're talking about how advancements have been made in the surgeries. Like, Jason Tatum got his done like the day after, and there's all these thoughts out there of the way it was done, when it was done, can aid in the recovery process where you can get back. And this is not rushing these guys back by any means. And with Damian Lillard, we've talked about this with Kyrie Irving. You're not protecting 10 more years of a career.
Right.
You're trying to, like, all right, I just got to get through my next contract, and we have a chance to maybe win in a weekend East. Maybe Dame is back in March or so, and it's the Bucks are like, hey, just hang in there, and then we'll hit the playoffs with Giannis and Dame after he had a month to ramp up and be ready to go, and we feel pretty good about it. So yeah, I don't know, but it's an interesting strategy to say the least. Of, hey, our whole plan is we don't really have one, but everybody else sucks, so stay here. It'll be great. Like, well, they'll clearly have more of a plan than that, but sure, it has to be a factor.
And part of it, though, was they're trying to sell Giannis on the idea of effectively a gap year, right? Yes. Which if you look at their salary sheet, makes sense. They'll have a bunch of contracts coming off the books and more flexibility. So basically telling him, hey, Giannis, just sit tight. Who knows? Maybe we make a run this year. We're not ruling it out. But hey, next summer, though, we're going to have a lot more flexibility. Now, that doesn't mean they suddenly have a bunch more draft capital to use, but still, it opens up some, and then you can make some more significant changes. And in the meantime, look, it's the East. We could fall backwards into a run to the finals in the Eastern Conference potentially. So that's what they're trying to sell, which it's not wrong. But like I said, again, it's a little bit funny that that's the big selling point, that, hey, you don't want to leave the Eastern Conference, which, again, if I'm Giannis, is there another Eastern team that you could potentially get traded to? But I've been wondering when this would become a thing, like when star players would start saying, now I'm going to focus on going to an East team because that's going to give me a clearer path to the finals. And maybe this will be a factor in Giannis's decision, aside from, of course, I think the number one factor is he feels loyalty towards Milwaukee, but sure, maybe that does wind up being an important selling point for him to get him to try to stay.
Yeah, I think we are getting closer to that for sure. Of, all right, there needs to be some look at how difficult is it going to be. And none of these guys, you talk to NBA players, we both do on a semi-regular basis. Yeah. They get where they get because they have supreme confidence in themselves. So none of them are going to be like, I don't care. Like, they'd be put me against every version of the dream team and I'll beat them, right? Like, that's just how these guys think. But you get the right people in their ear that are like, hey, man, do you want to have to go through 82 games you're going to play the other conference, but like 50 plus games of battling in the regular season against your own conference with very little wiggle room to slip for even a week or two. And then 3 rounds before you even get to the NBA finals of likely having to really work to get there. Yeah, it does become a little bit of a selling point to say, hey, you just got to kind of get through the regular season and then we can crank it up at playoff time and go. So I still think it comes down to the biggest thing for him will be what is the plan for not just the 25-26 season, but what is the plan to try to win championships for the next 3 years while I'm under contract?
Right.
And if it's, I like that plan, then he probably stays. If it's, I don't really like that plan or I don't think it's going to work, then he probably goes.
Yeah. Yep. And that will probably be the decision. And we're still waiting to hear, as far as we know, that meeting has not taken place yet. We'll see when it does. All right. The Mavs, not a surprise, but they're looking for veteran point guards. And Keith, specifically, they're looking for veteran point guard, whether it's via trade or free agency, which could get a little bit tricky for the Mavs. But they're looking for veteran point guards that could be the guy while Kyrie Irving is out, but then slide into a complementary, whether it's backup or playing alongside Kyrie role after that. So a couple of names that are out there include the Celtics' Drew Holiday, although getting their salary-wise gets a little bit tricky for Dallas. But Lonzo Ball, another name that popped up with the Chicago Bulls, as well as free agent veteran Chris Paul as a potential option. So the Mavs looking at a lot of different options to get somebody that can sort of steer the ship until Kyrie returns, whether that's in January, February, or whenever.
Yeah, and the Lonzo Ball one's really interesting because I'm not big time like you, where 600K is just change, but it's he only makes 10 million. Right. So 10 million though, he very easily acquirable for Dallas.
Yeah.
Like you can go get him in any number of iterations that you would make to make a trade, including you could do something as simple as PJ Washington straight up for Lonzo Ball, and that would work for the Mavs. Not saying that works for Chicago, but you could at least start with that as the foundation of something.
Or even if that's value, or just math-wise, that works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you have the benefit of, let's say Lonzo, let's say he doesn't fit, or let's say he gets hurt again, or something's just not working out. Well, we took $10 million gamble and it didn't work out. $10 million team option the year later, and you're out, right? We're out and we're gonna go find the next guy. And at that point, you have knowledge and clarification on where Kyrie is. If you go there, I think Lonzo is a good fit because he has shot it well enough that you could play him in a semi-off ball role next to Kyrie when Kyrie returns, because he is still a pretty good defender. He has enough size. I think that's a really good target. If it wasn't for it being a $30+ million salary match for Dallas, Drew Holiday would be an outstanding fit for them. If let's take Nico Harrison at his word, defense wins championships. He wants defenders. Like Holiday's still an excellent defender, can clearly run the offense while Kyrie is out. And then, as he has with the Celtics, slide into a complementary role, into a role where he's the 4th, 5th guy on the floor in certain combinations. In order to get there, it gets a little tricky, but there's still things that they could do. They could do some combination of, again, it's probably PJ Washington, and that a couple of people, well, why would Boston want PJ Washington? Well, it's $14 million and expiring salary. That's primarily why they would want him. You could do Daniel Gafford. You could do, you could put in, like, if he picks up his option, Dwight Powell. Like, there's ways to get there. Jaden Hardy could be available if you needed to plus it up a little bit there. So now all of a sudden we're in a spot where you could make that happen.
And just as an aside, I'm assuming Dwight Powell is going to pick up that $4 million option. Like that's going to happen. So yeah, you've got some different guys that you could potentially throw in there, or you could stack up some salaries to make some things work. But look, this makes a lot of sense for the Mavs. Obviously, the basketball gods smiled upon them. They've got Cooper Flag. Now there's some positive momentum building in Dallas. And if you're able to add, whether it's, I've seen going and checking in on who Mavs fans are talking about right now. There's talks about like Dennis Schroeder is a guy that some of them seem to want to target. Like there's some veteran guards out there for them to look at that can at least hold them over. And if they can do that, this Mavs team is going to be among the teams in the West, especially with Cooper Flag now on board. And if they can get some luck in the health department, that will allow this Mavs team to, I think, actually be a pretty significant threat next year in the Western Conference.
Yeah, you have to get somebody. And Chris Paul's interesting. The challenge with Chris Paul is you can't really play him with Kyrie. You're going to be a little too small there. Chris Paul did not shoot it that great this season. So that's much more of a Chris Paul can get us by. Then is he going to be okay being a 15-minute a night backup?
Right.
The other thing with Chris Paul, I don't know if we talked about it or not, but he did say, like, being in San Antonio was really tough on him, being that far from his family. And he's talked about that's going to be part of the decision making. I think he would rather head back to the West Coast if the right opportunity or like West Coast adjacent opens up for him to play somewhere. I think that's where he'd rather do. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. I mean, he may look at it and be like, all right, we can make this work and we can be a winner. And I'll say this with a Holiday trade, just to go back to that real quick. Washington, Gafford, and Powell works for a Holiday, but in that one, there'd be a third or maybe even a fourth team involved to spin those guys off somewhere. Because for Boston, they don't want to take back just as much as they send out, right? It's going to be, no, let's move more out than what we take back because we need to be in a little bit of a different spot than this. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind with that one too. So, all right, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely get there. There are constructions you can figure out that would make a move like that work, which is kind of interesting for Dallas. But they're going to come away with somebody pretty good, I think, because you're right. This has a chance to be a better than we think team next season, just with the way it kind of looks right now without Kyrie in the fold.
All right, now speaking of Boston, look at that segue there. Jaylen Brown hasn't ruled out knee surgery. Keith, what's going on with Jaylen Brown there?
Yeah, so came out shortly after they were eliminated after kind of not saying exactly what it was he was dealing with in his knee, that he has a partially torn meniscus. It's one of those ones where everything is stable. You do not need to get a partially torn meniscus even repaired. Sometimes rest is all it needs. Other times it is rest didn't do the trick and you need to go in and do a repair. Mm-hmm. So Jaylen Brown, he did an event for his apparel line and sneaker line, and he told Noah Dalzell of Celtics blog at that event, like, yeah, we haven't ruled out surgery yet. I've got a lot of doctors to meet with. We're going to see. But right now we're focused on let's rest up and get to a place. So we'll see with that. And then clearly if we need to do surgery, then meniscus is a little weird because there's two different types of surgery that can be done. There's the trim, which removes it. There's the repair. They come with very differing lengths of time that it'd be out. And my guess is all that'll be decided at some point, but probably at some point within the next month or so before Boston really needs to pick a path here in free agency. Because there's a world, we already talked about it, right? The East is not that good. There's a world where they're like, all right, we're going to step back a bit. We're going to keep some guys together and we can really be all right and get after this. There's another world
it could be a Warriors-esque gap year where they wound up with James Wiseman. That didn't work out, but it could be very similar to that.
Yeah, and that's it, right? There's a world where, all right, Jaylen Brown needs surgery. Jason Tatum already had surgery. Let's just call it what it is. We'll fall where we fall, and we'll figure it out. So I think that'll make some decisions here a little bit for them. But yeah, well, we're gonna find out. I would guess. My guess is probably within the next few weeks. He also did say, which was kind of interesting, he plans to spend the bulk of the offseason for the first time in Boston. Those who don't know, he's from Atlanta, went to school in California. He spends a lot of time in both of those places. But this year he said he's going to spend a lot of time in Boston. He's got a lot of events, community events and enrichment type things for the community planned that he's going to be around. And I'm sure the team is happy because that's more direct supervision of rehab, recovery, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Absolutely. So that's also a positive for the Celtics there. And we'll see where he goes, if he ultimately winds up getting surgery or not. Obviously, decisions to be made there, but we've got some other decisions to look at. Look at this. We're on a roll with these segues, Keith.
Becoming pros right as you go on vacation. And
that's right.
Leave me on my own and all falls apart and goes to disaster.
No. We're laying down the runway here for you just to continue along the path.
Sure. Yeah.
Draft
dirt runway with no tires on my plane I'm trying to land. But okay.
you got the off-roader in Mario
Yeah.
Kart. You're bouncing
Yeah,
around
that's
over.
it. Yeah, I'm landing the seaplane on the highway. But yes, draft decisions. So we've said the dates before, but they're worth refreshing. We're recording this on Tuesday the 27th, Wednesday the 28th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. So basically the end of the day on Wednesday the 28th. All NCAA players have to decide if they're going back to school or not. There's been a bunch of guys. We're not going to run through all of them clearly because it's just not worth our time because they're not going to be in the draft. But a bunch of guys have opted out. A lot of these guys are opting out and now transferring to other schools.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody who was a for sure first rounder outside of, and I'm probably going to butcher the name a little bit, but I think it's Yaxel Lendeborg. Who is going to Michigan next year. He's going to transfer. He was probably the closest thing to a lock first rounder. It seemed like he'd played himself into that status, but he's going to go to Michigan. He's very, very good. He's a big man, very kind of skilled all around, power forward type. He's going to go there and have a chance to improve his draft stock quite a bit. So we'll see. We're going to get even more throughout the rest of the day today, and then throughout the day on Wednesday, as that goes. So we'll keep an eye on that, and then if there's major decisions, we'll talk about it later in the week. And this is done not by the NBA's choosing. The NBA's deadline is June 15th to be able to do this, 10 days out from the first round. But this is the NCAA because the NCAA wants clarity for their teams and their coaches to know what's going on. And as the transfer portal has become a thing with that, and we're seeing more kids return to school too, even ones that are probably middle of the second round, because they can make more in NIL money than they will on a two-way or even sometimes on a rookie scale contract. And if they can improve and bump that into a first round contract, so much the better for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a lot of decisions. The best two, I think, to follow this kind of live, Jonathan Givony of ESPN, and then John Rothstein, who covers college basketball. He's really good. You can follow. They've been tweeting all these out. And then hoopsrumors.com has a really good early entry section where you can see like who's still out there, who's still on the fence or whatever. So just a couple resources to pull all this information together.
And before we know it, we're now less than a month away from the NBA draft. Before we know it, it's going to be draft night. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Yeah, we're approaching the drinking from the fire hose period of the off season here very, very rapidly.
Love it. Love it. So excited for it. Keith, I mentioned Mario Kart earlier, not intentionally building our final segue here of the show. Super Mario time again. Mario Hezonja, come on down. Think he's actually going to come back?
I don't know. He's 30 now, which also made me feel extremely old. Right? I've probably told this story, but I'll tell it again. Me and my buddy Philippe, this was before I was on any kind of media credentials. We had a partial season ticket plan for the Magic games. There was a preseason game where Hezonja and Aaron Gordon, Aaron Gordon stole a pass, threw it to Hezonja, and then Hezonja threw a bounce ball alley-oop to Aaron Gordon. That was one of the loudest pops I can remember in that arena. And for a preseason game, you could have convinced me to sign up for multiple Magic titles in that moment, and I would have been on board because it was such a cool thing. It never really got any better than that for that duo in Orlando. But yeah, I mean, he's been solid, I guess, overseas. You have to be really cautious with just pulling up overseas stats. Real GMs where I tend to use as my go-to, because it's a very different game. Guys don't tend to play a lot of minutes. When they do play a lot of minutes, much more of an equal opportunity type system in Europe than that. So you can't look at him and be like, you only averaged 12 points per game in Europe.
That was the Luka conversation when he was coming into the draft. He didn't put up numbers that looked that great. It's just different over there.
Exactly. It's very different, especially for very young players, because sometimes they don't, the coaches are very, you think some NBA coaches don't like playing rookies. They don't like playing kids much at all, unless they really are like, all right, this guy gives me the best chance to win. Then we'll play him. The other thing is you can never trust assist numbers, even though their assist numbers, I think, are a lot more fair to what an assist actually is, because it's not like I grabbed a rebound, took 38 dribbles, and then handed it to a guy. He took 25 more and then shot. And in the NBA, it's like assist.
Yep.
Over there, it's like, did it directly lead to a shot in a basket? And if it did, then it's an assist. So just careful if you're looking at it, but he has played well. There are NBA teams that have real interest in him, and they're going to bring him. I shouldn't say bring him in for a look, but at least probably have some conversations to see what that might look like for next season for Mario Hezonja. So, potential rotation guy in the NBA, sure, why not?
Yeah. Back in the day, he was that young guy coming into the draft that had all this bounce and everything, and people were excited about him. I know. Wouldn't mind seeing
thought
him.
he was going to be the next all-around wing that can do a lot of stuff. Let me close with this. Do you know what Mario's overalls are made out of?
No, I don't.
Denim. denim. Denim.
Why am I? That's like the dad joke of all dad jokes.
Great. It's so good. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
and now I really need to go on vacation after hearing that one. Oh my God.
It only works for a certain age, because I don't know if that reference plays.
Yeah, like a lot of kids probably wouldn't get it, because
I don't know. I don't know if they still use that music in the Mario games or not. It is funny though, seeing all these kids now that all these games have been remastered, they're playing all the games like we grew up playing. I was watching somebody play Paperboy the other day, and I was like, oh man,
Paperboy, that was a good one.
Yeah,
that was a good one. Well, and now you can play them you could put all these games that you'd have to get the cartridge and everything when we were a kid. Now you can get hundreds of them on your phone or whatever, and it takes up zero space, because these games that we used to play are nothing compared to the games now. Now you've got me hankering for some old school Nintendo games. I'm gonna have to go download Paperboy somewhere or something and play that one.
I have my Nintendo kicking around here somewhere, and I constantly think about buying, because I gotta go buy an adapter to hook it into a TV, because cables don't even work the same anymore. But if I maybe that'll be a summertime thing when things chill out a little bit.
That sounds like a good August project right there.
Yeah, could be. We get into NB August. Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
Just little programming reminder for everybody, where show's going to be a little weird this week. Trevor's doing some traveling. I will be live some point on Friday for Front Office Friday. I will let you know. Watch social media for that. We'll let you know. We'll get it scheduled and put out here on YouTube as well. With that, so you'll be able to see that. But we'll get that all set up at some point for Friday. We'll still do the Friday live show. We'll have a lot of fun with that. And if obviously if there's huge breaking news, I don't expect there to be in the next couple of days, but if there is, I'll jump on a live when I can, and we'll get into that as well. But enjoy some downtime, my friend. So,
thank you.
Well,
I'm gonna try to, if I can. We'll see though. Let's see. You never know. NBA news seems to happen whenever I try to travel. So
Truth.
You never know around this league.
Enjoy. Try to your best.
I will attempt. Everybody, make sure you do subscribe to the Front Office Show on YouTube, as well as over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.